So this is from Funhat6813. You've got $10,000 and 90 days to build and launch an MVP for your startup idea. So it says you got $10,000, 90 days to build. Do you hire a freelancer, use a dev shop, or consider something else like a no code, a subscription model, etc.? How do you prioritize speed, cost, and flexibility? Okay, well, you're not hiring a shop. I'll tell you that. Not for 10 grand. You're not doing anything for 10 grand. You get a splash page if you're lucky. That's about it. Freelancer, maybe. I'm assuming this person means that they don't know how to code. Maybe that's what I do with the $10,000. Go learn the code.
I would. Well, don't do that in 90 days.
No, you're not doing it in 90 days. I'll tell you that.
I'm just curious. Like this is always the stuff that blows my mind. Is why are people so obsessed with putting time frames on stuff? Like if you had $10,000 and a year, right? Like why is it 90 days? What is so urgent?
Well, because a lot of times people have to put timelines on themselves before they determine, okay, this isn't going to work. I have to go back to the workforce and make money.
No,
right? They might have rent. They might have a family.
I get it. But if he's looking to hire someone, get a freelancer or whatever, he's obviously looking to spend the money on something.
Sure. But maybe he only has a period of time to get this thing done.
Yeah, but
at which point, you know what? Don't do it then.
I know. That's kind of my point.
I know. Right? I know where you're going with this. The question you ask is why do people impose these timelines? And the reason is, I would say, a lot of times is because they don't realize that you can't go into this with that. But they put these timelines in their own heads because, like, if I don't do it in 3, 4, or 5 months, I got to get a job. I got to go back into the workforce. My savings will run out.
I get it. But like, if you're starting a startup, like if you're literally starting, putting artificial timelines on yourself, like if it's to keep you motivated, that's one thing. But if you think you're realistically going to launch a good product of any sort in 90 days,
right?
Like ask an artist how long it takes to record, produce, promote, and get a single out there.
One song,
yeah, right. I always remember what's her name, Jax. Do you remember Jax? I think she was on like American Idol or something, came in like 7th. She was always like middle of the road performer. Like she's not anything to write home about, so to speak. I mean, she's good.
Yep.
She did a TikTok song or recorded a song for this girl that she babysits, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And they released like a clip of the song on TikTok. And the producers and everybody freaked out because now she had to, the video hit like multi-million views, right? So she had to rush and get the song fully recorded and produced and everything. And they were trying to get it done in like a week. And everybody was freaking out because the song had already gotten popular, but I don't think there was a full song to go with it. So like they were freaking out because of the time frame. And I think the average person thinks, oh, how hard can it be? You just go into the studio, it takes 6 minutes to sing the song. So it should just be recorded, produced, and then you should release it and you're done, right?
Right. Is that easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's how Elvis did it.
Everything is that easy, right? I just think a lot of times when people are self-imposing timelines on something they don't fully comprehend, they're painting themselves into a corner because you now have this artificial timeline for something you might not understand. And people tend to, if they don't set a timeline, they never do it. But if you set a timeline that's too close, you almost go into this self-defeat, like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
And what happens if you don't hit it?
Exactly.
What happens if it's 95 days instead of 90? What if it's 100 days? So what? Okay. Right. What happens? Does your world end? Does whatever you were building magically disappear at that point?
Right. It's just, once again, I don't like artificial timelines for any type of startup. I don't care if you're starting a window washing business or a software, right? Like don't impose artificial timelines on yourself.
You can impose timelines for steps. Mm-hmm. I'm going to form my LLC. I want that done by February 8th. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I'm going to have steps along the way I can see.
I'm going to get 1,000 flyers printed my first week. And I'm going to distribute those flyers the second week, right? Well, if you happen to get busy after distributing the first 300 flyers,
Right.
you won't do the other 700, right?
Exactly.
But imposing artificial timelines to me is just, yes, a project should have timelines, but you need to be flexible. You need to understand what you're getting into.
Yeah.
I don't think most people do.
And that's an interesting point as well, because how are you going to set a timeline on something you don't understand entirely, right?
That's kind of what I get with this is it seems like he doesn't know whether to prioritize speed, cost, or flexibility. Well, you're prioritizing speed because you're
posing a
correct.
timeline, right?
Yes. You've prioritized cost because you have a budget. So
And it doesn't tell you as much flexibility.
The only thing you have left is flexibility, and you can't prioritize it because you have a budget and a timeline.
Yeah.
So there's no flexibility.
So the question, so let's work this out for him, okay?
Okay.
That's not the question to be asking. The question isn't, what can I do in 90 days with 10 grand? That's not the question.
No.
The question you should be asking yourself is, okay, if I have the budget of $10,000, what can I do with that $10,000 to start my business? Okay. What is that business? First off, okay. If it's something where you need supplies, need to buy some machinery, is 10,000 going to be enough? Right? If it's something like we keep talking about, starting a cleaning business, you need a mop and a bucket or some spray. You can go to Walmart and get that tomorrow. Well, it's not going to cost you 10 grand.
Right.
Right. So what are you going to do with that 10 grand? Is it going toward marketing? Is it going towards your formation? Is it going toward something else?
I think people need to understand what they're really asking, right? Because they're asking he's using MVP.
Yeah.
Right. Minimal viable product.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say you wanted to make candy, because candy is a great.
Sure.
Okay. So the minimal viable product for that would be whatever candy you have in the absolute cheapest wrapper on hand.
Yep.
That's a minimum viable product, right? So no fancy packaging, no labeling, no barcodes, no nothing, right? It's literally just your candy wrapped in cellophane. That is a minimum viable product.
Yep.
Could you do that for 10 grand in 90 days? Yeah, probably.
Absolutely.
Right.
Or we do it for $500.
Right. Could you intend for that product to be in every 7-Eleven in 180 days with a minimal, correct,
no,
right?
Not.
So like 10K, 90 days, launch a minimal viable product. There's a bunch of them that you could, but that doesn't mean you'll ever make your 10 grand back, or it doesn't mean that you make it to step 2. It doesn't mean you go into mass production. It doesn't mean any of those things. So I don't know. So, and startup idea is so broad, right? Do you hire a freelancer? Freelancer to do what?
To do what? Right.
Come up with a recipe, right? Do you go hire a chef because you want to, these questions are just weird.
Well, they're very generic. Well, they're generic, and sometimes people don't know what questions to ask. Now, it sounds to me like this person is definitely talking about some type of tech, right? Because they're talking about dev shop and no code and things like that. So they're talking about likely either an app or some kind of SaaS product.
So I'm going to say 10K and 90 days, build a game.
Yeah. Build a game.
Build a game.
Yeah.
Your revenue comes from ads and in-game purchases. And you could probably have a minimal viable game up and running in 90 days.
I'll be honest with you, 90 days is going to be really tight, and I'll tell you why. If you could start coding today, you could do it in 90 days.
Yep.
The problem with the game is you got to lay it out first. You got to figure out what the game is, how it's going to play.
Go look at someone else's game and make a slight variation of it.
Oh, please.
No, don't please me. Really? Coke, Pepsi? How far apart are they? RC Cola?
No, make your own game.
Yeah, but who give me one game in the last 10 years that is not a slight variation of someone else's game?
I mean, I've released 2 games that weren't.
Name them.
My Let Me Out, which is it's a maze game, right? It's a unique spin on mazes. If I think so.
So it's a maze game.
It's a maze game.
So it's a spin-off of a different game.
Oh, come on, you can't say that.
I can.
No. If you're saying like a game that is unlike any other game in the world, okay, fine. Then no, That's you don't need to do that.
Every game that has launched over the last 10 years is pretty much a variation of a different game.
Okay, I think that's okay. That statement is different than take an existing game and change it slightly. That's different.
I mean, any of these first-person shooter games,
Right.
they all derive back to the same first-person shooter game,
Dude.
right? Wolfenstein.
No,
Wolfenstein.
Wolfenstein was first. That's
Yes,
right.
it was.
It was Wolfenstein. I
Right?
had this argument with somebody before.
Every other first-person shooter game is just an advancement of Wolfenstein. It is a different environment, different weapons, different scenery, different whether you're working solo or working with a team, even like the Rainbow Six games. All of these games are just an advancement or a slight modification of each other, right? It's slightly better graphics, slightly better accuracy for the weapons. Like I remember when we were playing, so a buddy of mine is a coder, right? So he hacked, we were playing, what was it? What was the game where you worked together as a team, a military team, and they gave you these missions you had to complete?
Call of Duty?
No, it wasn't Call of Duty. It's one of the Tom Clancy games, I think.
Oh, I don't remember.
But anyway, so he was a coder and he loved firearms.
Yeah.
And he figured out that the firearms in the game weren't accurate. So the drop rate on the bullets and stuff like that wasn't accurate. So he literally hacked the game and modified all the weapons so that they were like
more accurate.
Yes. Right. But basically he took the game and made it better.
Yeah.
Right. Same game, but now it's better because now your handgun couldn't.
Yeah, but that's not the same. That's not creating a new game.
No,
that's modifying something that's already out there.
And that is my point, right? Like every game in the last 10 years is basically a modification of a previous game.
Okay.
EverQuest, Eve.
I mean, if you want to be broad like that, sure. Okay, fine. And that's probably not the case for every game, but probably every game we know of.
Yeah, I mean, so when did they launch the first NBA game, right?
Oh, 91, 92, I think.
So it was like the first real basketball game. Same thing with NFL. It was one of the
Unless
first.
you count Atari basketball.
It's questionable at best. Right? But every advancement has been just a modification to the game. They take the game, they make it better. They make better graphics because we have better computers. But even like go through the App Store.
Yeah.
Right? Voodoo, Sudoku, all of those are it's all the same game with slight variations.
In those cases, yes, I'll agree with you.
All the Candy Crush games, they all follow the same basic function. Like it's all the casino games, right? They're all the same game, just with slightly different odds and slightly different slots, slightly different winning ratios and loss ratios. Every casino is and that's my point is if you have 10 grand and 90 days, find a game type that is performing well and basically come up with a variation of that game that is in some way different that would make would want to make people play it. Right? Like my wife is hooked on Wooduku. I downloaded and I tried it. And after one night I was like, yeah, no. Right? Like just not my type of game.
Yeah.
Not that I game a lot. I like mindless games,
yes.
Right? Where I don't have to do too much. So like Candy Crush for me is brilliant because I can sit there and watch the news or do whatever, even work sometimes. And you're just kind of like moving things around and like, it's not a big deal. Right. And there are, God, how many variations now of that game?
Oh,
like there's thousands.
Thousands of them.
So,
all right.
Because once again, we're getting to a minimum viable product.
Right.
And you can get a game to be a minimal viable product, probably in 90 days, by just doing a little bit of research on, even go look games that are up and coming. Don't look at the top 10 games.
Yeah.
Look at the games that are a little bit further down.
Right.
Download them, try them, and go, oh, this would be really cool if. Right? Now you might have something you could do in 90 days because you don't have to map out the entire thing. You're just saying, hey, we're going to use this idea as a base, but we're going to modify it like this. And I always say it's always easier to take something and modify it than necessarily come up with an idea and start from scratch.
Yeah,
Right? Like,
I agree.
we're not reinventing the car. We're just finding ways to make the car better. Right? We're not reinventing the phones. We're just finding ways to make it the perfect size or a better camera or the user experience better. Like,
Well, think about it. In the last 10 years, that's really all there is.
that's
There
yes.
really hasn't been any real major advancements in the
There's
phones.
not since the iPod.
Yeah.
Right? And not even the iPhone, since the iPod, because like the iPhone works identical to how the iPod used to work.
Right. Just with the phone.
Correct. So, like, once again, you don't have to be, and I say this all the time, you don't have to be first to market. You don't have to have, a brand new idea. Like, one of the things, so I got to talk to the developers of Eve. Do you know what game that is?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So I got to talk to the developers of Eve. And I didn't realize until I talked to them that the thing that actually makes Eve such a unique game is their economic system that they use in the game. They actually had 2 economic professors come up with the economic system for the game.
Yeah, we talked about this. I remember.
And it was fascinating because they're like, we could have made it whatever. We could have made it a copy of EverQuest, whatever. We just
Right.
decided to make it spaceships and planets and trading posts. What makes the game so unique is the economics of the game.
Because there's a finite resource.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's a
Remember
single.
we talked about this
There's
a
a
while
single
ago.
resource, I believe, that is a finite. So like that. Once it's all harvested, that can only be traded. Like there is no other way to advance, which forces that to be traded in the game.
Yeah.
Right, because it is a core element. It's a really cool concept. But once again, they took the concepts of a different game. They said, okay, instead of lands and cities, we're going to make it planets and bases.
Yep.
And then you fly your spaceship around instead of driving your car or being on horseback.
Right.
It's just
Oregon Trail in outer space.
Yeah. So like there are things like that where you can take something, the base idea is there, but they looked at it and said, how do we make this different from everything else? And the answer was the economics of the game.
Yeah.
Which was really cool because it's one of those things that as a user, you don't necessarily think about when you're downloading an RPG game, right? You don't go, oh, what are the economics of this? Right? It was like, I was a huge EverQuest guy back in the day.
Oh,
like I would
good
spend
game.
hours.
That was fun.
It was a fun game, right? And I was in a guild, whole 9 yards, because at some point you realize that you were only able to master certain crafts with your character, right? So either you had to go through and then level a second character in order to be able to master a craft, or you would join a guild where you then had access to other players that had mastered a craft and were able to do stuff for you. And then you had to master something to trade it in. So the skill set became the economics of that game because you could get almost any resource. They were differently hard to get. Like that's why we did raids and all that stuff.
Right.
But it was the skill sets of the characters that became the tradable asset, so to speak, in the game. So it was how you decided to level your character and what you decided to specialize in, which was, once again, kind of cool, but not a novel idea.
So bringing this back to Funhat 6813,
Mm-hmm.
90 days you can build a game. $10,000 you can probably build it. You'll need some help with some things, but you can build the game in 90 days. Identify what it is. Identify what kind of game you want to build. I know what you're saying about it. It's a derivative of something that's already out there. I get it. I think there's a little more to taking something that's there and just modifying it slightly versus taking a genre that exists and building something within that genre. I think that's a little bit different.
Okay.
So yeah, you can do it within 90 days. Yeah, absolutely. Be prepared to put some long hours in.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that can absolutely be done. But at the same time, don't limit yourself to 90 days. Shoot for 90 days,
Correct.
right? That's your goal. But if it's 100 days or 110 days, that's okay too.
Do you have any other type of software or anything that you could do in 90 days and 10 grand? Because that's the only thing I can think of that might actually be viable.
I mean, you could build it. It depends on what the product does. You could build a SaaS product in 90 days.
That does what?
Well, that's the thing. What does it do?
Right.
I don't know what it does.
Correct. And that's like, if you had to come up with an idea, you have 90 days to do it and 10K, what software, what?
I mean, it depends who you're talking to. Like, if you gave me the idea, I can build you almost any, and if I had like 90 days straight to work on it, I could build you almost anything in 90 days. I could rebuild Facebook in 90 days, probably faster than that. But I would need the idea. I would need to know what you want it to do.
But he's asking for an idea.
Yeah, he's asking for ideas. I know.
So like, I'm trying to figure out like what.
No, I like the game idea. Build a game. Building games is fun. Once you understand pixel collision, which is the hardest part of building a game, once you understand that, building games is fun. It really is.
So between the two of us, that's the only thing we can come up with
for right now.
Yeah, and for that budget and that time frame.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I would lean towards. Remember that if you have questions or comments, please drop them below and we will prioritize actually answering the questions on these videos.